Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. So glad that you decided to tune in on a Monday morning. It was a very successful weekend for the Dodgers, both in the organization as far as the minor league affiliates and obviously at the major league level. Austin, hey, as we bring you into our show for Monday, first of all, just overall thoughts on the action in the system over the weekend.
Yeah, no, it was a really good action that we saw over the weekend. Obviously, the Dodgers have a really important weekend series this past week against San Diego. Got one more tonight. And the Dodgers have done exactly what they needed to do in this series. They've won 2 out of 3. Obviously, the game on Saturday, a little bit frustrating for a lot of the fans. But if you look at the overall big picture, they are gaining momentum. They've won a lot of games. And we'll talk about kind of upcoming schedules and everything. Dodgers are in a really good position right now, and they've just had a really good weekend from what I believe.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Talking about that good position there in first place, 4 games over the Giants, 8.5 over the D-backs. I'm very surprised. You know, the D-backs, I believe, had like a 4-game lead over the Dodgers with about 5 or 6 games to go before the All-Star break, and they have really fallen off. I said a couple different times, I didn't think that would happen, but it has. So D-backs have really struggled here in the last month and a half or so.
Yes, they have. Yeah, and that's just what can happen with the overall landscape of baseball. Baseball can change, and a lot of different teams that you think can be competitive kind of slowly drift off a little bit, or they have little ruts that they go throughout the summer. I think the D-backs are going to have opportunities coming up against the Dodgers, so it's going to be important for the Dodgers to do their best to win a lot of those games so that the D-backs can stay down a little bit and not catch up to the Dodgers. But the Dodgers have been able to gain a lot of that ground that they had lost earlier in the season, which is really good to see.
Yeah, and in my opinion, the D-backs, the way that they run, the way that they steal bases, that's not necessarily a great matchup for the Dodgers. So you want to have as big a buffer as you possibly can be going into any series that you play against the D-backs. But hey, the Padres, again, one more big game with them tonight. They are 10 back of the Dodgers, not going to catch them in the NL West, at least, crazier things have happened, but it's not looking that way. But just 3 games back of the wild card. But although they're 3 games back of the wild card, they still have 3 teams to jump, the Diamondbacks being one of them.
Yeah, and here's the thing. San Diego does have a ton of talent on their team, so I totally would not count out the Padres to be able to make that jump, to be able to make that run, just with the amount of talent that they have, the personalities that they have on their team, which is really important, especially if you do not want that rematch with the Padres in the postseason to continue to win these games when you are matched up with the Padres. So tonight, a very important game, even though Dodgers have already taken 2 out of the first 3. Splitting the series wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. You want to continue to take out some of these teams, especially considering what happened last year. Just you don't want any sense of hope for a team like that. You want to kind of clear the playing field, get all of the memories from last year kind of out of the way, and continue to build towards a potential World Series berth.
Yeah, in the playoffs, if you had your choice, would you rather play the D-backs or the Padres if you're the Dodgers?
That I would probably say the D-backs just because they don't have the experience in the postseason. Yeah, even though there is that matchup kind of disadvantage that we talked about with the D-backs using the ability for speed, I don't want to play the Padres because they have that experience. Not only do they have playoff experience, they have playoff experience with beating us. And we have to take that into consideration.
And they have Snell and they have Darvish. And I mean, they have some serious firepower. So, and the one thing I think we would all agree that, of course, I think that the front office showed this as far as what their targets were at the trade deadline. The one thing the Dodgers don't have at this moment is that shutdown number 1 starter. So when you face up against a Snell or a Darvish, man, I mean, I know we've seen it and the Dodgers have won games against that, but still it would be a very, very nerve-wracking type setup for the Dodgers in the postseason. Okay, so let's talk about, I mentioned the trade deadline, the acquisitions. I think a lot of people were disappointed they didn't get a Dylan Cease or an Eduardo Rodriguez or a Justin Verlander, a number 1 type starter. But boy, they did add a whole lot of value to this club. Ryan Brazier, his ERA since he's become a Dodger, 135. We forget about that acquisition, with all the flurry down the stretch at the trade deadline. Kike Hernandez has been simply fantastic. 333 batting average since he's come to the Dodgers. His OPS is 828 as a Dodger since he's come over. He has 9 RBIs in 8 games played. Med Rosario, he's been fantastic too. 296 batting average. OPS for Rosario as a Dodger, 709. 9 RBIs in 8 games played as well. Lance Lynn, we saw him last night. Innings eater, and he's also been very, very good. 2.77 ERA for the Dodgers, so good ERA and innings eater, like we said, that the Dodgers needed. And then Ryan Yarbrough, we'll get into the decision to open Michael Grove on Saturday, but Yarbrough came in as the bulk inning guy on Saturday, 4.1 innings pitched, gave up just 1 run, and did his typical thing, 3 strikeouts, which isn't a whole bunch, but he didn't walk anybody, which is the key to Ryan Yarbrough. So, hey, maybe the big-time name wasn't acquired, but, boy, the acquisitions have been fantastic.
Yeah, and this is something that I think we've seen in the past with trade deadlines. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the flashy moves that add the most to the team. You look at these guys, they don't look like the fanciest kind of moves that the Dodgers could have made, the biggest names. But there is something to be said about acquiring talent that fits some of the needs that you have. We look at a guy like an Med Rosario, a guy who has been hitting lefties for a bunch and has had success when he's come over to the Dodgers. We look at a guy like a Kike Hernandez that adds a ton to the clubhouse. And I think what we've seen throughout the past this week, obviously it's a short sample size, but he has proven that he still has the ability to hit in there when he is put in an environment that he feels comfortable in. And I think he feels comfortable in this environment. It can't be said how huge of an acquisition, at least so far, Lance Lynn has been. Just being able to provide that innings that the Dodgers need just to keep their arms healthy. And he's not just eating innings, he's doing it at a really successful rate too. We saw in his first game, he only gave up, I believe, 3 runs where he gave up a couple home runs. Last night he went 6 and I believe just gave up the 1 earned run. And if he's able to provide 6-7 innings of between 0 and 3, even 4 runs, that's going to make a huge difference, not just to him, but to the rest of the pitching staff as well, especially when you're dealing with a lot of young arms that you're going to need to protect in as far as the limited innings that they're going to have. Ryan Brazier, obviously huge. He's been a huge acquisition to the bullpen. We've talked about what sort of difference he has made to the bullpen in the past as far as the bullpen effectiveness. And then we look at some of the other acquisitions. Ryan Yarbrough, very underrated as far as what he's able to do and what the Dodgers can utilize him. A little bit unique of a delivery, but he can be effective if he's utilized in the proper role and given the ability to match up with exactly the type of talent that he can get out. So overall, I think we've seen this week, obviously it's a small sample size, so you have to take that into consideration. But you've seen what the Dodgers can do with each of these guys and some of the vision that they see that they can add to supplement to a lineup that already has a ton of talent.
So let's get to some of the pitching decisions over the weekend. Bobby Miller, just 3 2/3 innings. He looked, he'd given up 6 hits, so hey, the Padres had hit him around a little bit, but just the 1 run. 4-seam hit 101.4. The 2-seam hit 100.8. The spin rate was fantastic. He had 3 pitches to also beyond that to mix with. He also had the sinker curve change, of which he was in the zone. Of all the 5 pitches he threw, he was in the zone over 50% with 3 of them. He was 48%. I believe it was on the sinker. So he was throwing strikes. So first of all, what'd you think about Bobby Miller? What'd you think about the early hook for him, 3 2/3 innings?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to listen to this game on the radio, actually driving back from Fort Wayne, where I was visiting the high affiliate of the Loons this past week in Fort Wayne.
In Caps.
Yep. So I was listening to it, and it sounded, from what I was able to hear, it sounded like Bobby was kind of getting up there as far as his pitch count was concerned. I think he was at, 80 something, 82 or so pitches, had given up a couple of hits. Obviously, you just stated his stuff seemed effective as far as the velocity is concerned, but he was still giving up a bunch of hits. He was throwing a lot of pitches. I honestly think this is something that we're going to be seeing over the course of the next month or two. Just the limited amount of pitch count for both him and for some of the other younger pitchers as well. They're not used to pitching to the volume of innings of a regular MLB starter.
Did you get any vibe that, hey, Dave is the manager, and I brag on Dave quite a bit, but did you get a vibe at all that he just really doesn't trust rookies, maybe like he should?
I think we've kind of seen that from a lot of the decisions that he's made throughout the year, and I think we've seen that from a lot of the decisions as far as who they are putting in the lineup every day. They have certain guys they'll put rookies in the lineup quite a bit. We've seen that with like a James Outman. We saw that earlier in the year with a guy like a Miguel Vargas, giving them some runway, and then some other guys, they don't get quite as long of a runway as rookies. And I think that just has to do with the just the limited experience that a lot of these rookies have. And I think he kind of just prefers that veteran presence. And that's just something that, as a manager, you have your certain preferences, and I think he has his preferences.
It looks like Bobby Miller, to an extent, made the cut. James Outman made the cut. And then, hey, how about the next guy we're going to talk about? I was super proud of the Dodgers organization for the decision they made Saturday. First of all, not to give up on Michael Grove, not to just send him back down to AAA. We've mentioned this a couple of times. He hit 96 on Saturday, but he's hit as high as 98. The cutter's big time. Hey, the swing and miss has been there. He just has been making, he's been giving up too many hits in extended periods of time. And you and I have mentioned, throw him in the bullpen, get him the right matchups, and then, limit the amount of exposure he gets to the other team's lineup. Well, they did that, but they did it on steroids. Okay, so not only did they not just move him to the pen, they actually moved him to an opener setting, which was, with the beauty in this, Austin, I think you'll agree, is that they put Michael Grove, who's been a starter this year, put him in the opener position, which, hey, that put the Padres putting a bunch of left-handers against him, right? And then once he got to the lefties in the lineup, then you bring in Ryan Yarbrough. And you kind of made Michael Grove and Ryan Yarbrough together one really, really, really good starter for Saturday's outing. Obviously, Yancey gave up the runs, but that strategy right there, I think there are times where the Dodgers massively overthink things. They play too many analytics into decisions. That was not one of those times, though. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I think that was brilliant too. And I think that kind of reminded me of a couple different things. One, as we just mentioned, a lot of these younger guys, we want to kind of limit some of their innings. And especially with you bringing in a couple of starting pitchers, some of the roles for a lot of these rookies has changed. What a great role to utilize Michael Grove in. I think it kind of reminded me, and probably kept reminded some of the Dodgers fans, of the 2018 NLCS against the Brewers, where Milwaukee brought in their starter to only face one batter and then switched the matchup on the Dodgers to try to get some of those favorable matchups. You can't necessarily do that after one batter with the rules now. You got to face three pitchers. But you can do that for just an inning, get some of the matchups that you want, and then switch it over to Ryan Yarbrough. I don't know how many more times the Dodgers can get away with this before a lot of the teams pick up on a strategy like this. But even if it just forces them to kind of mix and match a lot of the lefties, righties matchups, you can get some matchup advantages in that, and you can force some of their bench just to shorten a little bit. And I think with a role like this, Michael Grove was able to utilize his stuff as best as he possibly could for a shorter stint. And I think you saw just how effective he can be just in a shortened stint like that. And then with the matchup advantage that Ryan Yarbrough was able to gain from a decision like this, just being able to when you're going into a new city, when you're going into a new organization, a new role. Just being able to put yourself in the best position to succeed. I think the Dodgers were able to do that for Ryan Yarbrough.
Yeah, the Dodgers got a little over 5 innings between the two combined. So, hey, you mentioned the other teams will probably catch on to that. But who's to say you don't go 2.5 with Grove, 2.5 with Yarbrough? Who's to say you don't start Yarbrough, then bring Grove in? I mean, there's a million different combinations to keep it fresh and keep the other team from being able to lock in on exactly what you're trying to do to them. And even if they do change their lineup, if they anticipate you not throwing Grove for a long period of time, you are at least making them create their lineup based on what you're doing instead of based on what they are wanting to do.
Yeah.
Which is an advantage.
Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely an advantage. There's a lot of things that you can do with getting creative like this. And I think this is something that the Dodgers should look forward to doing in the past, creating that pair of Michael Grove and Ryan Yarbrough and just getting the most out of the matchup game.
What'd you think about Emmett Sheehan getting optioned?
Yeah.
Did you see it coming?
I think with the limited innings, I think I could see some of that potentially coming down the road. I think he pitched well in his outing against Oakland, I believe, a couple days ago. I don't remember exactly when that was. But I think I kind of saw this coming a little bit just with the limited pitching, with the innings that they have. And I think they want to utilize him more as kind of that starter role. Or they could potentially kind of slow down some of his innings, see how he does coming out of the bullpen in a little bit of a less stress environment down at the minor leagues. I don't know what exactly their plan is for Emmett Sheehan for the rest of the year, but he is going to be facing a lot of limited innings. You're going to need some of those innings out of the bullpen in the major leagues. And I think with just them adding a couple of pitchers, there are going to be guys that are going to have to move off of the major league roster to make room for them. And I think, unfortunately, that's what happened to Emmett Sheehan. I think you have a combination of different things that ultimately led to his option.
Will he be back? I mean, I don't know whose spot he would take on the roster.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be back this year unless somebody gets injured, somebody struggles a little bit. I think they're going to kind of take it slow for the rest of the season, especially as we've talked about in the past. He did deal with an injury last year, so he doesn't have quite as many innings built up from previous seasons.
Only had 15 in 2021. I think he had like maybe 60 last year, 65, somewhere in that range. So, yeah, he's in uncharted waters as far as his professional career in innings pitched. Okay, the offense, 21 runs in 3 games. Obviously, Freddie Freeman has been just absolutely ridiculous. Try this on for size. In the last 7 games, Freddie Freeman's hitting .517. His OPS is .1445, and he has 2 home runs and 5 doubles in the last 7 games. The dude's he's amazing, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he is in the ultimate professional hitter. And he's just shown just throughout the season just how dominant and how consistent he can be. He's extremely consistent, knows what he's doing up there at the plate, knows his strengths, and he's really been just an amazing signing for the Dodgers. Brings a lot of life, a lot of personality, and a really successful baseball personality as well. You see it through a lot of his stats. He really helps lengthen this lineup, provides a real big punch right at the top of the lineup with the Mookie Betts. And yeah, he's been amazing. Just really great to see him just in the prime of his career just be so successful.
Let me back up. We were talking about the pitching just a minute ago. Yency Almonte gives up the runs on Saturday. The Dodgers lose that game. It was obviously very frustrating. I love the fact that Dave went right back to him the next day. I think that's a great, that's one of those deals, we talk about managers. They're not necessarily teaching the game at the major league level because these guys already know how to play. They're having to manage, egos and manage confidence and all that kind of stuff. I thought throwing Yency back out there the next day was a sign to Yency that, hey, we haven't given up on you yet. We're not going to, so, hey, let's get you back out there. Let's get you back on the high side. I thought that was a great move.
Yeah, I love moves like that. Just being able to show these guys that you still believe in them, you still believe in their talent, and you still have the ability to get these guys out. And I think that showed just the confidence that Dave has in Yency. And man, I think Yency can still be a really big help to this team. I think he can still help out with this bullpen. I know fans are frustrated that he gave up the win that we supposedly had on Saturday, gave up a couple runs with that. This is a big confidence boost for him going into the future. What happened on Saturday had already happened. Let's go ahead and move forward. Let's go ahead, continue to build momentum with you, continue to work on getting a lot of these guys out. And just show that we believe in you. So then the next time when it comes to even more important series down the road, I think Yency is going to be able to step up because of the confidence that Dave has continued to show in him.
Man, that's a tough one. He's been such a roller coaster. Hey, there's been like 2-3 weeks where he struggled, and then 2-3 weeks where he was. It's been one or the other. It's either been he was like he was Saturday, or he was just lights out. His stuff is just fantastic. The four seam, the slider, the sweeper, whatever you want to call it, and then the sinker that turns right. His stuff is fantastic, but it's not always in the zone. He doesn't always trust it, and because of that, I think he makes mistakes. Kind of the Michael Grove syndrome, if you will, where you see him one batter and you're like, wow, that was really impressive. Then the next batter will hang a slider and he'll hit a home run, right? So, man, it's been that roller coaster ride for him all year long, and now it's starting to be a roller coaster from game to game. Hey, one game he's great, the next game he's not. So I know Dave, man, one thing about Dave is that he has his guys he trusts. Okay, he makes his mind up. Do I trust this guy or do I not? And I'm telling you, if he trusts the guy, he'll ride him till the cows come home. But if he doesn't have trust in you, he will be sitting there waiting to take you out or waiting to not put you in the lineup, the whole time. So I think seeing what's going to happen with the NCL, I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know if he's going to be a factor in the playoffs or not, because I don't know if, hey, the margin for error is not as big this year. So, you're, like Saturday, you can't have a performance like that, especially in the playoffs. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how the front office and Dave handle Yency Almonte down the stretch.
Yeah, should be really interesting to see kind of which direction that they go. And I think it will be up to Yency as far as showing that he's a little bit more consistent down the stretch.
What are your thoughts on Caleb Ferguson?
Yeah, that was... I think we saw a little bit of kind of the same thing as far as some of the struggles that kind of Yency saw. I don't know exactly. I don't know if you have kind of the full scope of some of the numbers that he has had throughout the course of the season. But I think with all of these guys in the bullpen, they're going to have to continue to show that they can be effective down the stretch.
Data aside, analytics aside, and we like data and analytics, but, I was talking to Coach Holt on Friday. There are times where, as a manager, you got to go, hey, put your books down for a minute, put all your data down for a minute. Going to use my common sense, going to use my hunch. I'm going to use my eyes and what I see right here. So just taking the data out of it, Caleb Ferguson in a Game 5 of a playoff setting, tie game, do you throw him out there? From what you've seen with your own eyes, from what you feel in your gut right now, do you throw him out there?
No.
I think that's going to be an interesting. I'm with him. I'm the same with the NC. I don't know yet. I still think both of those two need some runway down the stretch, and of course you're trying to do it while winning games because you're trying to hold off the Giants. Who, of course, the more that you can stretch your lead, the more you get to look at these kind of scenarios. But so, I mean, and my question would be is if you don't trust Caleb Ferguson in that setting, if you don't trust Yency Almonte, who do you put out there? Here is the silver lining to that. In a playoff setting, with the way the TV has it nowadays, you don't play like you do in a regular season where you play like 10, 11 games in a row. Yeah. So you have to use literally every single piece to your bullpen and pitching staff. I think you can go with your go-to guys a little bit more in a playoff setting because you're not playing necessarily like 5-6 days in a row.
Yeah, and I think you can use some of the guys that you feel a lot more confident in, some of those guys that have proven to be successful more of the long term, or some of those guys that are just hot. You see a lot of guys in the
Yes,
playoffs just
correct.
get hot. And when I'm saying right now, when I say no to Caleb Ferguson, that's with just knowing kind of the large sample size that he has. I totally would rely on him if he showed that he can be effective or if he's hot during that certain stretch in the playoffs. So when we're talking about a 5-game series, it can very much vary depending on what I'm seeing with a lot of these guys, what the data shows. You just have to take everything into consideration with this. And I think there's a lot of effective arms in this bullpen, a lot of guys that can get people and hitters out. It just depends on who's hot and who has the overall best numbers and matchup that you see. And kind of that, as you mentioned, that feel that you have for the game, you got to have a little bit of that and just take everything into consideration.
I think Ryan Brazier, I think Evan Phillips, I think Brusdar Graterol, those are your go-to guys. I think the rest of them, I think it's going to be a day by day. Like you said, hey, who's pitching well right now? Who has the better matchups? And you put those together, that's kind of the data analysis of it. But then you also just kind of go, who with my own eyes, with my own gut do I trust? I think you throw all of that together to put a game plan together if in a playoff setting, as far as if you're not going to throw your go-to guys in the bullpen that day, that's how you map out those games. Is you combine your feel for it plus the best matchups that day plus who you think is the hottest at that moment. So I think that's the way they're going to go with it, and I think those guys are going to get some more chances to give Dave Roberts a better feel of how all that's going to play out. Okay, Mookie Betts, he's been fantastic as of late as well. Last 7 games, .393 batting average. His OPS is .1290, 3 home runs, 3 doubles, 3 RBIs. Obviously, Betts and Freeman, best 1-2 combo in all the game of baseball.
Yeah. No, you said that right there. The 1-2 combo of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. It is very difficult to look around the league and see anybody who is better as far as a 1-2 combination right at the top of the lineup. Both have been just absolutely incredible. Mookie Betts is kind of that spark plug for this team. He can play just about anywhere in the field. He can run, he can hit for power, he can do it all. He's got all of the 5 tools that you want from a big leaguer. Just a really, really productive guy at the top of the lineup and can be just an incredible difference maker for this team.
So with Kike coming over, I was a little worried it was going to be James Outman, the rookie, that got squeezed the most. It's actually been Jason Hayward, who, as far as the at-bats go, have been squeezed. Hayward just has 6 at-bats so far in August, and to be honest with you, he's struggled a touch. He's hitting .211 in his last 7 games and just .167 in his last 15. So is this just kind of one of those, in 162, it's one of those periods where he's not getting quite as many at-bats in a short window, but it'll all recycle back? Or is this the trend? Is Hayward going to keep losing at-bats?
I think it's going to be a little bit of a combination of both. I think you're going to see Kike. I think right now he's getting used to being back for this team. I think they're throwing him out there to see kind of what he's got and what he's able to have. I think they like some of the matchups that he's been able to have as opposed to a guy like a Jason Hayward. And I think with what you've seen with Jason Hayward, I think as your role starts to change, as you start to see some of your at-bats start to dwindle, some of the inconsistencies that you start to see throughout the season magnified just a little bit more because you don't have a little bit more of the runway. You don't have some of those at-bats to be able to find some of the inconsistencies that you have just over the course of a long stretch of the season. So I think with a guy like a Jason Hayward, I think he's still going to have a very important role to play on this team. Obviously, we've seen him be successful this season after the past couple seasons where people have kind of forgotten about the skill, about the talent that he has had. I think we're going to see a little bit of his role kind of diminish a little bit. just because the Dodgers have some left-handed outfielders that they have out there. They want to see what James Outman can do over the course of 162. David Peralta has been swinging the bat pretty good. I think you're going to see that role kind of diminish a little bit. I think it's still going to be, there's still going to be a place for him on this roster, just not quite as many at bats. So it'll be up to Jason to continue.
You good with that?
I think that's just what you are going to have to deal with this team, with this roster, just with the way that it is constructed. You can't have all of your outfielders be left-handed bats. And unfortunately, if you have three of those guys and you basically have room, at least consistently, for two of those guys to be in the lineup, I think you take a guy who is a little bit more of a veteran presence. I think he can adapt to that vastly changing role a little bit better maybe than some of the other guys. I think you could argue it could be Hayward or Peralta that would do best with that. But I think he will adapt, and I think he's going to find a way to really help this team in the long run over the course of the next couple months, no matter what his role is.
Yeah, we are in the process right now, schedule-wise, where the rubber is meeting the road. You have 4 with the Padres here. Then you go to Arizona for a 3-game series. Then you come back home against the Rockies for a 4-game series. So you have a lot. You have a chance to really build a pretty good lead in the NL West. You already have a 4-game lead. Man, if you can get that thing up to 7 or 8 games, and that would give you the leeway to work on some of these situations we've talked about, with a little less stress as far as having to win every single game. So I think that would really help the Dodgers, obviously. Then you're home against the Brewers. You're home against the Marlins. You're at Cleveland. You're at Boston. Back home against the D-backs. And then that ends August before you take on the Braves early September. So, man, the rubber is meeting the road right now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and you talk about that schedule. There's some really good competitive teams right there, but I think for Dodgers fans, you expect the Dodgers to go on a little bit of roll through the rest of August. And they need to go on a roll to provide a little bit of room between them, San Francisco, Arizona, San Diego. And you want to build as much momentum as you possibly can down the stretch of the season. And I think the Dodgers have an opportunity to do that against some of those, you could say, kind of that mid-tier of talent. As far as teams go, it's going to be really important for the Dodgers to start and continue to take a lot of these series and continue to gain momentum as we go down the stretch.
Yeah, it just seems like in this stretch, it works out in the Dodgers' favor ever since the All-Star break. And I kept saying that before the All-Star break, that stretch was really tough right before the break. And they needed to play that 10 to 15 game stretch before the All-Star break like it was the playoffs, because I really felt like after the All-Star break, the schedule favored the Dodgers, and they were going to be able to win some games. So when you look at, you mentioned there's some good teams on here, some mid-tier teams, but it just seems like the right teams are at home and the right teams are on the road.
Yeah, and it's funny because you'll have these stretches throughout the baseball season where you'll have some really tough competition that you have to go against. Then you'll have some competition where you have pretty solid competition, which I think the Dodgers are going to see over the course of the rest of the August. Then you have some teams that are maybe not as good that you wouldn't get matched up against. We saw that earlier in the week with a team like Oakland, which the Dodgers were able to take advantage, which is what you want to see with a lot of these. Matchups just vary throughout the season, and it's funny kind of how the ebbs and flows, but it will be really important for the Dodgers to gain momentum because that series against Atlanta coming up early September, that kind of time frame will show where this team is at.
Yeah,
and
I
think it would be important for the Dodgers to be able to send Atlanta a message that it's not going to be a cakewalk for them to walk through the National League.
So you said you were in Fort Wayne with the Loons this weekend, right?
Yes, yeah, no, I was there.
Tell us about it. Fort Wayne's a great environment. They really support their tin caps, don't they?
Oh, yeah. No, they support their tin caps. The stadium that they have there, I can't say enough about it. Yeah. It is one of the best that I've actually been to in the minor leagues, if not the best. Obviously, I have a little bit of bias towards the Loon Stadium, Dow Diamond, which is phenomenal. They do an amazing job there. Just the overall stadium that Fort Wayne has, it is must-see in order to go to that stadium. And so it was a really cool environment. Got to sit down over by the team quite a bit this week. Got to interact with a lot of the personnel as far as around the team, and got to see some debuts this week. Loons kind of went through kind of an up and down week. You're placing against a really tough Fort Wayne team that has a really good offense and has been hitting his stride, just getting into that real flow. Loons were able to kind of split that series. And so you saw some really good outings by the Loons. You saw some not so great outings by the Loons players as well. Got to see the debut of a guy like Nick Biddison, which I saw him in the clubhouse the day before he debuted, before kind of that roster transaction kind of played out. Got to see the first at bat in the high level for a guy like a Luis Guerra, who I haven't heard of him before, honestly, before this. But it was really cool to see kind of just him just getting kind of that first start. I know he's a really young guy for the league, young guy for the level as well. And then some other outings that I saw, just kind of that I was encouraged by. Being able to see a guy like a Max Hewitt fill in the role at catcher, and he had a really good game on Friday.
Threw a guy out.
And not just threw him out. It wasn't even close when he threw him out too. Get a couple hits. You saw some other performances on the pitching side do well. Even though Maddox Bruns gave up those 5 runs, I think those middle 2 to 4 innings that he had in his outing actually were really good and showed a lot of good signs. And I think some of the personnel for the Loons were really encouraged by that, even though the front end and the back end weren't quite as good. So I think you just look at kind of the overall week, little bit of up and down. I think Fort Wayne was able to send a message that they're going to be dangerous. And I think it's going to come down to a couple of different teams that the Loons might have to face for their specific playoffs. Either Fort Wayne, Dayton, or a team like West Michigan, who won all of their games this week against Lake County. So it's a fun stretch down on the farm for the Great Lakes Loons. Just kind of see this playoff race, kind of how it's going to shape out. You've seen a team that has been so dominant in Loons kind of go through a little bit of the dog days of summer, but they've still shown signs of the team that was there, the team that had won so many games, which is what I saw on Friday. Just the livelihood and the personality that they have, and just their the overall culture that we have. I was able to see a little bit of that on Friday, which wasn't there when they were struggling a little bit Tuesday, Thursday.
All right, man, you already talked about the Loons, but it's time to take a trip down on the farm. So, Austin, thank you so much again for joining for our typical Monday, and hey, we'll see you for the next show.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Casey.
All right, fans, let's not waste more time. Let's get right to it, and let's take a trip down on the farm. It was a good weekend for AAA Oklahoma City, and Gavin Stone got it started off right on Friday night. He was absolutely on point. He went 6 scoreless. He had 10 strikeouts, and he gave up no hits. He topped at 95.8, which is good. Good velo on the 4-seam, but that wasn't the pitch he threw the most. He actually threw his cutter more than any other pitch. That's a good changeup. You saw it right there, but that cutter pitch was very good. He threw that cutter at 91.8, and it had 31 inches of vertical break. That cutter you just saw on that pitch, kind of a smaller slider type pitch. You've seen back-to-back cutters there. 31 inches of vert, and he threw it for a strike 71% of the time. So when you match the velo and the movement, combined with the fact that he threw it for a strike 71% of the time, that is absolutely fantastic. And he also had 5 pitches working, throwing his changeup and a curveball and his 4-seam, and it was a very good mix for him. He didn't throw any one pitch more than 33% of the time, and he threw strikes. So a great outing for Gavin Stone. Landon Knack had a great outing on Saturday evening, and the thing about him was, hey, he's a 4-pitch guy. It's listed as 5-pitch sometimes because sometimes he makes his slider a little smaller, and that becomes listed as a cutter. But his mix was absolutely excellent. He pitched backwards, and he was able to throw strikes while he pitched backwards. Matter of fact, his 4-seam was not the pitch that he threw the most. He actually threw his slider the most, and his slider was in the zone quite a bit. He had went 4 scoreless innings, again, struck out 3, walked none. And like I said, slider in the zone, very good, 36% of the time, and that slider also had a 36% whiff rate. He was 25-12. He reached 25-12 on his 4-seam spin, which means he's carrying the zone very well, and it topped at 93. Cutter and change also induced weak contact, just 51-mile-an-hour exit velo combined between those two pitches. And Landon Knack, who is pitching with a chip on his shoulder, got a chance to interview him yesterday. That interview will be coming out on Thursday. Super excited about that. Definitely pitching with a chip on his shoulder. Ryan Ward had a double and a triple that was hit 101.4 on Saturday night, and he now has hits in 10 games in a row. He had 2 hits again on Sunday, and he's hitting .325 since the beginning of July with 8 home runs, 12 RBIs, and a triple, 5 doubles, 20 runs scored. So, hey, this dude, Ryan Ward, got a chance to interview him yesterday as well. Wonderful young man out of Millbury, Massachusetts. This dude, Ryan Ward, is doing damage to the PCL. The baseball is awesome video of the day. Check this out. Fly ball to left fielder. That's Bryson Brigman, who's been playing a lot of shortstop lately. Goes up against the wall, catches the ball. What a great catch for Bryson Brigman. Then he celebrates with his teammates. He gets dapped up just a touch by his teammates in the bullpen there. Lots of fun. Bryson Brigman, highlight reel play. Hey, he's hit the ball very good this year. He's played a good shortstop, good athlete. So good play, Bryson Brigman. Got a chance to go to Oklahoma City yesterday, do a couple interviews. I mentioned Landon Knack and Ryan Ward. Then got to see Ryan Pepio pitch. Got to see all of his warm-up process and all that. Didn't get video of him throwing his weighted ball against the wall. But other than that, this is his warm-up here. You saw a little flat work, little long toss, just good old catch play. And then bullpen, and then a good look at the night of Ryan Pepio. There is some of his long toss. Here's his pin right here. Very good. That's actually Jamie Wright. Got a chance to talk to him yesterday. He's 2 years younger than me. Graduated from Westmore, which is a high school in the Oklahoma City area. So we actually competed against each other. I don't know if we actually from Stillwater played Westmore ever, but still very close in classes in Oklahoma. And here's Ryan Pepio on the day. Very good performance for him. 4 innings. He did give up 2 runs, but he had 3 strikeouts, and he touched 96.4 on his 4-seam, and his spin was 24.76. at the max, so that was good. His changeup had 36 inches of vertical movement, and slider had 49, so a lot of movement to those 2 pitches, and the changeup had a 35% whiff rate. So Ryan Pepio still with a good swing and miss, had a good performance for AAA Oklahoma City. Hunter Fiducia, one of the most well-liked young men in the organization yesterday. Got a chance to watch him from pin all the way to his at-bats. Just a really great player, and a young man I know a lot of Dodgers fans have been clamoring to get up to the major league level, not on the 40-man yet. So there are some logistical issues to that. But out of Lake Charles, Barb High School played for Glenn Caccini and their great program there in Lake Charles. He had 2 hits yesterday. He's hitting .292 OPS, .878. So like always, Hunter Fiducia setting up to finish strong. Michael Bush went 3 for 6 for AAA Oklahoma City yesterday. Going to go ahead and back this up. Now, watch how he loads right here. He points that knob back to the catcher. That's called stretch, when you're walking your hands away from your body to give you that torque in the middle of your body. You know, torque is two things moving in different directions. Okay, so you have your front side coming this way, your back side coming that way, and then when it uncoils, it's like that rubber band. You've created that torque, and that gives you your power that you hit with uncorking and uncoiling right here. So here he is right here as he slots the elbow. When he slots the elbow, actually right there, he's a little steeper than most hitters. A lot of hitters, in fact, most hitters probably at this point when they slot the elbow have their barrel flat already, but he is still at a positive bat angle here, meaning the barrel is still above the hands. So that means that he's going to actually have to come down at this ball at a steeper attack angle to the baseball. So watch this. Look at that barrel right there have to come down at the ball. Barrel's actually having to come down right here to the ball, and then at the front of the zone. Then you have a lift at the top. Perfect swing for Ryan Ward. That's why one of the reasons why he is such a great hitter, having such a great year, and one of the reasons why I'm so high on him. Miguel Vargas had 2 hits and 2 RBIs for AAA Oklahoma City. Exit velos of 99.2, 87.7. We know this young man can hit AAA pitching. I say it all the time, but hey, is he hitting the ball hard? Is he covering all parts of the plate? Right here you can see he just covered an inside pitch. I believe this pitch was inside. Let's back it up, see where that pitch was. See how he got to it. Miguel Vargas, see how In the past, we mentioned that he was dropping the barrel right here and kind of looping it like that. Well, watch how direct of a path he takes here. Hands come flat through the zone here. Barrel is making a very direct path. And then at the front, again, it's going back up. That is just a great swing. Miguel Vargas, this is the Miguel Vargas swing that we became accustomed to, and he is swinging the bat very well right now for AAA Oklahoma City. Here's a good look at the short and compact swing of Pat Valaika. Man, that is short, and that is right straight to the baseball. Not a whole lot that can go wrong with that. He went around that ball just a touch, which is why he topped it, but love the shortness of Pat Valaika's swing, love the athletic ability. He had 3 hits yesterday for AAA Oklahoma City and 4 RBIs. He loves using that middle of the field, which I like. This is his best game, Pat Valaika, since he's joined AAA Oklahoma City on July 4th. So wanted to give you a good look at him, the Major League veteran Pat Valaika. David Dahl has been absolutely wearing the baseball out for AAA Oklahoma City. Look at the bat speed right there. His head stays still. He stays centered in the middle of his body. That's just an absolutely great picture-perfect swing from the left side. He had 3 hits yesterday, went 3 for 6, and David Dahl has hits in 5 games in a row, and he is 9 for his last 17. So David Dahl, keep an eye on him. Steven Duggar went 3 for 4. Hey, he was on the IL for quite a bit, but since he's been back on the last 10 or 11 games, he has been hitting the baseball very well, and he has hits in 3 of his last 4. I did not actually get a swing out of him, but I just wanted to kind of show you his process and how balanced he stays. You can tell a lot too by the way a guy takes a pitch, how he's tracking the ball. So there is a look at Steven Duggar, who has been hitting the baseball very well for AAA Oklahoma City. Jimmy Nelson, you're going to see 2 things here. One that makes him good, one that makes him not as good. That slider right there, that had it all in one. The slider right there, see, that's a great pitch. That's very difficult to hit, but the first one he saw not in the strike zone. That's been his problem. He has not been able to throw enough strikes to get consistent outs, and that's led to some outings that have gone. There you go. He pulled a fastball. So you've seen him pull a slider and pull a fastball. That literally is exactly what's going wrong with him. Then you've seen him throw 2 really good sliders. So, hey, when he's in the zone, he's very, very tough, but he has not been in the zone enough. But he did get his 4th hold of the season yesterday. He had 2 strikeouts and 1 scoreless inning. He touched 94.3 on his 4-seam, and he landed his knuckle curve, which is a tough pitch to control, but he landed it 50% of the time, which is good because it had a 33% whiff rate. Jimmy Nelson also threw 5 sliders that you saw. 3 of them were for strikes. So good outing for Jimmy Nelson. Got to see Keegan Curtis's slider right there with my own eyes. Last year with Tulsa, there's 2 in a row. He threw a slider 7 pitches in a row. Very impressive slider performance for him. And he had an ERA of July of just 1.17. So Keegan Curtis has been pitching very, very well. Then he went scoreless in his first outing in August before giving up a run last night. So wanted to show you Keegan Curtis live video of his slider that I took last night from the game. Victor Gonzalez went 1 scoreless inning for AAA Oklahoma City to move to 2-0 at the AAA level. His sinker was 94.4. He was 27 and 18 on the movement, 27 meaning vertical, 18 meaning horizontal, and he landed his sinker 71% of the time. So when he put 94 with 27 and 18 with a 71% land rate, all of that put together is very, very good. So hey, slider was 85.9 as well. So Victor Gonzalez, who got the win last night, looked very good for AAA Oklahoma City. Congratulations to Kendall Williams for getting promoted to AA Tulsa. And hey, this is his first outing in AA, and it was a good one for him. So well done, Kendall Williams. He went 4 innings. He gave up just 1 run, had 7 strikeouts in Wichita, and gave up just 3 hits. Hey, these uniforms at Wichita are usually the wind shirts what they're wearing here is they used to have an old African-American team that played way back when. They played an all-white team, and they actually won that game, and these were the uniforms that they were wearing when they won that game. So this was in tribute to that. So really cool that they're wearing that uniform. Kendall Williams' ERA in July was just 1.90. His whip was 0.80. His average against was 1.55. And his ERA in the year is just 2.79. And he just got promoted and pitched very well in his first AA outing. So great work, Kendall Williams. Yusniel Diaz is absolutely unconscious right now for Tulsa. He had 2 home runs on Saturday night. He had 2 more hits on Sunday. He has 4 total in his last 3 games, and he has hits in 6 games in a row, and he's 10 for his last 22 with 4 home runs, 3 doubles, 9 RBIs, 7 runs scored. 28 total bases. You remember the Dodgers traded him away a couple of years ago. They got him back this year. He hit a home run and his first at bat back with the organization, and he has gotten hot here in July and August. Diego Cartaya went big fly for the second game in a row. Let me back that up so you can see it again. This is really great to see Diego starting to get to these pitches and hitting them over the left center field wall like that. Also threw out a runner this weekend, so Diego Cartaya had a very good weekend in Wichita, and that is very exciting to see. Carson Taylor, who usually catches for the AA Tulsa Drillers whenever he is on the field, he was playing first base yesterday, and he had an absolute bomb that you just saw in Wichita. Hey, Taylor's been fighting the injury bug this year. It slowed him down just a touch, but he has a very, very good hit tool out of Virginia Tech, just like Nick Biddison, both Hokies. And he's become a good defensive catcher. Now he's adding defensive versatility to his game, being able to play first base. Carson Taylor. Austin Brubaker covered our segment on the Great Lakes Loons. A lot of great insight. He was there all weekend in Fort Wayne to watch the Loons play in person. So, hey, we've already had that segment with the Loons earlier in this show, so we're going to move on to the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes at the single A level. The Quakes scored 3 in the first, and they never looked back. They scored 3 in the first, 1 the second, 3 in the seventh, and they beat the Fresno Grizzlies 7-2. Wilman Diaz continues to just mash the baseball. He's hitting .403 since he got moved up to single A Rancho Cucamonga. He had 3 hits on Sunday. He went 3 for 5. Josue De Paula went 1 for 2. Jake Geloff, hey, welcome to the lineup. Jake Geloff, he went 2 for 5. The young man that just got drafted out of Virginia. Joe Vitrano, the Boston College baseballer who just got drafted as well. He was playing first base, so Jake Geloff was at third base. Joe Vitrano was at Jake Geloff was at third base. Joe Vitrano was at first base, and Geloff got 2 hits. So did Vitrano. Jesus Calise, he had a hit as well. He went 1 for 2, and then Luis Rodriguez went 3 for 4, and Jose Izada, he had a base hit as well. Joe Vitrano, he hit his first and second doubles of the season. Jake Geloff actually had a triple yesterday, and then Wilman Diaz had a home run, and so it was a good day offensively for the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, who again won 7-2. Chris Campos went 4 scoreless innings. He was backed up by Levon Reynoso, Yoel Ibarra, Ronaldo Yin, Calvin Ramirez gave up a run, and then Madison Jeffrey finished scoreless in the 9th inning to finish it off 7-2. So a good day for Rancho Cucamonga as they move the record to 55-47.